And with all the numbers of confirmed cases, recovery and death cases, this leaves the number of active cases. That means those that are still currently infected with this disease at 2,875,258. And with that number, there are those with mild conditions and those with serious or critical condition. And again, also those with mild condition at 2,822,091, which amounts to 98%. These are the currently infected patients with mild conditions, and those with serious or critical conditions at 53,167, which amounts to 2%. Again, also the number of those with mild conditions surpassing those with serious condition. So let me just come to and I want to begin with Tanzania. This is because there was a letter that was sent yesterday which was just showing that Tanzania is slowly going back to normal in terms of schools reopening, people boarding public vehicles just like how it was, and also the issue of not wearing masks. But even at that, with them wanting to go back to normalcy, the number of total confirmed cases is just like how it was yesterday, because yesterday I was giving you the numbers of Tanzania and it was still at 509 confirmed cases, which is still the same case this morning, and the number of total deaths at 21. There's no any new deaths so far. This is in Tanzania. And the number of recovery cases at 183. They're active cases still at 305. So that's how Tanzania is doing in terms of confirmed deaths and recovery cases this morning. Let's look at Madagascar, the country that gave the coronavirus tonic, which the number of confirmed cases this morning stands at 542, with a total number of deaths at 2 so far. And the total recoveries at 147, while the active cases at 393. So that's that in terms of how Madagascar is doing. This is in terms of their numbers for both confirmed cases, death cases, and even recovery cases. So let's look at which country is topping the list in the African continent. And South Africa still is topping the list. This is how this has been for the past couple of weeks. South Africa has just been topping the list with the number of confirmed cases of this disease, where they stand at 23,615 confirmed cases, with their total deaths at 481, recoveries at 11,917, leaving their active cases at 11,217 also. Now, Egypt, this is again the country which has also been following closely after South Africa in terms of confirmed cases. Again, this is also in the past couple of weeks, where their number of confirmed cases is at 17,967, and their total deaths at 783. Now, if I may just stick with the numbers of death cases and try to compare that to South Africa, when you look at the numbers, in terms of confirmed cases, South Africa surpasses Egypt. This is in regards to the confirmed cases in that country. But when you look at the number of death cases, Egypt surpasses South Africa in terms of death cases, which just, that brings the notion of the fact that yes, a country may have so many confirmed cases, but that does not ultimately translate to the number of death cases. Again, if I just compare the numbers, this is in regards to the number of active cases, Egypt standing at 12,287, while South Africa at 11,217. Again, the same case, Egypt surpassing South Africa in the number of active cases. And when you say active cases, these are the people that are still infected with this disease, in as much as, yes, there's recovery cases. So that's that in terms of numbers this morning and how we are doing as an African continent as well as the entire globe, which takes us to our next segment where we sample for you the newspaper, our segment in the headlines.
Good morning once again. If you're tuning in, this is KBC Channel 1. You're watching Good Morning Kenya now, right about that time where we look at what has made headlines, especially on the dailies this morning. Now, focusing on the dailies, we start off with the Daily Nation, where a story has captured what seems to be Kenya's continued fight to stem the spread of COVID-19. There goes COVID. Nairobi slums could just explode any time. Now, hotspots, some of the city's informal settlements have already recorded high numbers of infected people. Experts fear residents will be worst affected by the pandemic. That's what the kicker says there on the front page of the Daily Nation. And the story is captured in detail on page 4 and 5. And just to read an excerpt, is that owing to the neglect Informal settlements are off the grid and as such difficult to monitor and service, according to the report by the new humanitarian. Now, this makes them hotbeds for disease outbreaks such as COVID-19 because many cases of social distancing is virtually impossible. They are also unable to access treatment and care for existing diseases because of lack of access to medical services, making it difficult to track cases and isolate infected people. That particular report that has been, highlighted there by UN Habitat has warned that the pandemic is likely to hit the vulnerable people hardest. This comes at a time when there's been a lot of discussion about reopening, given what the president's speech while he was launching his stimulus program during COVID-19, saying that it's no longer sustainable to live under the restricted measures. That is captured on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Discussions around the reopening amid the directions, to just stem the spread of COVID-19. The same story has been captured on the Star this morning, and more so Kenya's corona dilemma as infections keep an upward trend. Now, on that's a kicker. That's what the headline says. Now, the kicker continues to say, this is the most important question in Kenya right now. When and how should we lift the COVID-19 restrictions? Last Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta strongly hinted that he is unlikely to extend all current containment measures when they expire on June 6th. That's just about 14 days away. Now, Kenyan specialists are now projecting the likely benefits as well as the potential risks of reopening too soon and assuming the battle is won when it has only just begun. Details of this follows on page 4 to 5 of the Star 2. Just there's a sneak peek of the impact that COVID-19 has had on the economy, as well as just looking at the table of the cases that we have since March. So far, 61,971 samples have been tested. 402 persons have recovered, while 52 have succumbed to the deadly virus. Now, quoted there, we have lots of reasons with proponents and opponents of the reopening come after 6th June to just ease up the measures and continue supporting the economy. While that is underway, one of the developing stories that we're keenly focusing on is the issue of mass testing. Now, the government has been undertaking various measures in terms of mass testing, and today focus is going to be on Lang'ata. Remember that now Nairobi is starting to be one of the hotspots, or rather is one of the hotspots of COVID-19. Lang'ata yesterday registered a lot of numbers, and this morning, Lang'ata at Uhuru Gardens, mass testing is going to be taking place, while Kibra, the Komokonji grounds, is going to be hosting, or rather we're going to be having those tests happening. How about we look at what we have been doing, or rather what the government has been doing in the last 24 hours as we focus on that particular developing issue of mass testing.
Long queues characterized the COVID-19 targeted mass testing exercise at Kihumbuini Primary School grounds in Kangemi and at Highbridge Primary School in Parklands.
Nimekuja kwa sababu nataka nipimwe, nijue maana hii ndio tutasaidia serikali kutambua tuko watu wangapi ama hii ugonjwa imeenea kiasi gani.
Na si marafiki zangu wale wako mbali wajitokeze kuja kupima, kwa sababu wakati tutaanza kutangamana tujue kwamba tuko na afya mzuri.
Aside from the extensive sensitization done here, it appears Kenyans are also beginning to appreciate the importance of knowing their status.
Sababu ya sisi kukuja sana ni hiyo, kujua sisi tuko hali gani, na pia tumeangalia kulingana na ile himizo ambayo tumepewa na Wizara ya Afya. Tukaona pia ni kitu ambao ni patriotic, wewe ukijua.
Kulingana na mimi nasema wafadhali nikuje nijijue kuliko kuogopa alafu mambo mengine ambayo inifikia.
The free screening also attracted a significant number of individuals who work in the hospitality industry who were hopeful of getting a clean bill of health.
Nataka kama certificate zitatoka hapa zikuje, then ndio tuendelee tufungue kazi, ndio tuendelee tufanye kazi. Kama naweza pata certificate naweza shukuru sana, kuliko kwenda huko juu huko tena ni kulipa.
I urge the government to
on this mass testing to provide the certificate so that we can run our business as usual.
But health officials say such groups will need to be cleared from designated centers.
Kuna ile serial number utapatiwa na iko registered. Iko registered kwa system na pia kwenye ile form yako, na pia wakati utakuwa ukipata ile certificate kuna mahali inakodiwa. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni special number ya food handlers. Kwa hivyo ya hapa utakuwa umetest kama community member, lakini ya food handlers lazima uanzie hiyo process.
Individuals who are tested receive their results via text messages or emails. However, shortage of testing materials was reported at High Ridge, causing delays.
Form ni kambe ziliisha kulingana na watu waliotarajiwa kufika, zikaongezwa na sasa tunasonga.
The healthcare workers were actually fewer than the number that we are having on the ground. You see, the previous testing, we didn't have such a quite large turnout. And I think for us, maybe it was an oversight. We didn't expect.
Could Kenyans be slowly embracing the mass testing exercise intensified by the government to flatten the curve of infections? This might be the case as the turnout rises at Kangemi and High Ridge area in Parklands. Kamchemenza for Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Now we shall be keeping you updated in regards to that. Remember, mass testing will be underway today in Kibra and in Langata. We will be keeping you updated in our subsequent bulletins. Well, moving on to other news, let's head over to politics. On the front page, I have with me a copy of the Standard. The front page has an image of the Deputy President, William Ruto. Why Ruto is feared, that is the splash. He is the most talked about politician today, and his every step closely monitored by allies and foes alike. Picture there, we have different leaders, including Nyeri Town Member of Parliament Gunjiri Wambugu, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, National Assembly Minority Leader John Badi, Kimilili Member of Parliament Didmas Baraza, Senate Minority Whip Mutula Kilonzo Jr., and Kacheliba Member of Parliament Mark Lamunokoi. They are giving in their different views in regards to this, why Ruto is feared. Let me open the Standard and get to read more about this story so that we can be able to dispense of it. Why allies and critics monitor Ruto's every step and word. Some say he is charismatic and hardworking. Others see a ruthless man who will stop at nothing to become president. DP's camp insists their man will fight to the end despite political hurdles meant to slow down his bid to succeed President Kenyatta in 2022 elections. Fear of the vindictive and authoritarian presidency is fueling the political onslaught against DP William Ruto's quest to succeed President Kenyatta. But now the question about the source of his immense wealth also remained an obstacle to the self-styled hustler, who is a front-runner in the race to State House in 2022. Pictured there, we have an image of the DP addressing a public meeting in the past. And towards the other page, we have why DP asked Meru MPs to make tactical retreat in Senate purge. That is the story there. Days before Senate Deputy Speaker Kithure Kindiki was ousted last Friday, Deputy President William Ruto had directed a group of Meru members of Parliament to make a tactical retreat. That is the story. Why DP asked Meru MPs to make tactical retreat in Senate purge. And that is the story on politics on the front page of the Standard newspaper.
Now, looking at the Daily Nation, Ram, it seems that the issues of politics, political battle lines are seemingly already drawn. And now the headline here on the Daily Nation: NASA angles for Jubilee spoils. The kicker: seeking formula, warns the purge on errant members is complete. Majority and minority sides of the House are set to share committee leadership positions. That's a very interesting header there and kicker, leading us to page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. Now, just to read an excerpt there, is that Raila Odinga's ODM party will lead other political parties in the NASA coalition in the parliamentary group meeting of the National Assembly on Thursday, where the composition of the House Committee, the Reorganization and Building Bridges Initiative will be on the agenda. Timing of the parliamentary group meeting is of question there, with Minority Leader John Buddy saying that they have secured a venue that can accommodate a large number of MPs. Now this meeting comes ahead of the resumption of House business, and President Uhuru Kenyatta also summoned a meeting of the Jubilee Parliamentary Group. Page 3. While leaders' dalliance with Jubilee spells death of NASA. In the Klaus agreement states that the coalition ceases to exist once at least 3 parties pull out of the deal. Quoted there is Raila Odinga speaking during an interview with the local FM station, denied claims that the opposition is dead, adding that his pact with President Uhuru Kenyatta should not be misconstrued to mean that he had joined the government. Do you think so? Do we still have an opposition? Well, that's for you to decide if you want to get to know what is happening in as far as politics. Page 2 and 3 has captured it well. Now, down there is quite ahead of there. Uhuru allied MPs speak on claims of plan to impeach Deputy President Ruto. Now, a group of MPs allied to President Uhuru Kenyatta has warned members of Team Tanga Tanga to be careful of what they wish for their leader, warning that they could be forced to bring a motion to impeach Deputy President William Ruto should circumstances call for it. Tough speak there from Jubilee allied MPs. Now, before we cross over to have a detailed report on that, how about we also focus on a similar story that has been captured this morning on the Star? Broken vows. Marriage seemingly turned sour. If you remember what the media had expressly captured when Jubilee came into force, we used to find that President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto actually wore matching ties. Now, in that particular front page caption there, broken vows, eyes on Ruto as Uhuru convenes top Jubilee meeting. Red tie there, blue tie there, totally not in sync with each other. What does this portend, especially for the leading Jubilee party? Kicker there, eyes on Ruto as Uhuru convenes top Jubilee meeting. Over to page 6. Now, the page 6 of the Star this morning. House cleaning. Jubilee horse trading precedes the second purge of Ruto's allies. Aaron Chariot, Aisha Jumwa, and Chris Wamalwa targeted. Remember what happened with Kindiki Kithure? Well, now it seems that also Jubilee is already working on purging, purging Ruto allies. The Jubilee and NASA seek a deal on Kindiki's successor. That is what is happening in as far as politics, especially of the ruling party Jubilee there, and what the allies, or rather allies of Ruto, are going through, as all eyes on DP Ruto as Uhuru convenes Jubilee committee meeting. We have a detailed report in regard to that particular document that was circulating on social media, purporting to be an order paper of business to be transacted on the 2nd of June 2020 by the House, by the clerk, now the clerk of the National Assembly, Michael Silali, says the document is intended to mislead members of the National Assembly and the general public on the alleged impending impeachment of Deputy President William Ruto. Edward Kabasa has more details on that. Okay, now that's a clip that we have it on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. Further details on what is happening in the ruling party there, that is Jubilee, and what it portends in regard to what political lines NASA is going to take in light of these current developments. Over to you, Ram.
Regina, it's still on the same breath of the Deputy President. Yesterday, there was a story in regards to him. Remember, in Kiambu County, where we had some food that were distributed that were poisonous. Well, mystery of toxic food aid given in Ruto bags. That is the headline there. Suspected poisonous food. We are talking about flour, sugar, and green peas were dished out from a car in Kikuyu on Sunday. Now, at least 20 people were taken ill after consuming suspected poisoned foodstuff donated by unknown people in Gikambura, Kikuyu constituency on Sunday. A number plate of vehicle used to distribute the food was, however, concealed. But now, yesterday, residents who complained of stomach ache, burning sensation in the throat and tongue went to Gikambura police post with the contaminated foodstuff. Others affected had gone to Kikuyu police station to record statements. But now remember, there were claims that this food came from the DP William Ruto. But yesterday, Ruto's spokesman David Mugonyi said the DP's foundation had nothing to do with the bad food. At Gikambura police post, a Kiambu County ambulance was on standby to ferry those who complained of illness to the hospital. Picture there, we have images of residents at Gikambura on their way to hospital in Kiambu County ambulance after they consumed the suspected poisonous foodstuff. And above there, we have Kikuyu Member of Parliament Kimani Chungwa at Gikambura police post with some locals who received the donations. Remember, there were claims that these things came from the deputy, but it has, however, been dismissed. Mystery of toxic food aid given in Ruto bags.
Anxiety has gripped some sections of the Nairobi metropolitan area following the distribution of contaminated food to residents of Gikambura village in Kikuyu, Mashimoni in Starehe, and Dagoretti South constituencies. 12 people are being treated for tongue and throat infections after consuming the food, which has since been established to have been laced with unknown poison.
What we are going to do is we are going to ensure that anybody else who is distributing food outside that established mechanism is going to be arrested. And action will be taken against the person, because we do not understand whose interest you represent if you don't go through an established mechanism.
Residents here say the food which was hurriedly distributed Sunday consisted of sugar, maize flour, green grams and cooking oil.
Hata siwezi kuambia mwenye alinipatia vitu juu alitoa mikono kwa gari hivi. Sasa hiyo gari ilikuwa ya white, Land Cruiser ya white. Sasa wakati mimi walinipatia ndio nilirudi kwangu na wao walienda na huko Musa. Watu wengi sana walikuwa wameikibisha wapewe. Na hawakuwa nasimama nikupita hakuna ati nini nikupeana kidogo kidogo hivi.
The unknown donors wrapped their not so kind tokens in red bags similar to those used by the deputy president last week when he delivered food donations in the area.
Lakini kukura ndio unasikia unakula kijiko mara moja, mara mbili, ya tatu unasikia kunywa maji kiwi hapa unasikia ni kama kitu inajifunga hapa kwa koo. Sasa wakati baba yao alikuja jioni nikamwekea hiyo chai, akaniambia hii chai haitaste vizuri, akaitema chini. Mimi nilikuwa nimekunywa, mimi na chapo nilikuwa nimekunywa. Sasa wakati nilikunywa chai kama haina kitu ya kukulanisha, ndio nilisikia hiyo chai inachoma mtu.
In distancing himself from the poisonous food, Deputy President William Ruto, through his communication office, said he only delivers relief packages through formal and known networks such as churches, mosques, and with the participation of local leaders to ensure track and trace mechanism.
It is an act of sabotage, an attempt to sabotage the good work that the Deputy President has been doing with members of Parliament and our churches in this country.
Kikuyu Member of Parliament Kimani Ichung'wah said he is reading politics in the distribution of the poisonous food. The government has banned independent distribution of relief assistance in the country, instead urging Kenyans of goodwill to channel their efforts through the Kenya COVID-19 Fund to cushion those disenfranchised by the pandemic. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
Now, that particular story has also been given a lot of detail on the dailies that I have here. That is the Daily Nation, where some politicians are saying that is part of political malice set to paint the deputy president in bad light there. Now, quoted there is one of them, that is Mr. Mugonyi, and also some of Ichung'wah. Ichung'wah says that The unfit foodstuff have said to be from William Ruto Foundation and Kimani Ichung'wah was a work of their political opponents to portray them in bad light. Now, this fake packaging and the foodstuffs did not come from us. At the same time, Nyoro there has been quoted on page 2 or page 3 of the Star saying that it is indeed a challenge to establish the source of the contaminated food, as it bore the names of Deputy President and the Kikuyu MP foundations, and the only food that was distributed from the area was from them last week. This is one of the developing stories that we're going to be focusing on, especially in the county level, given that this heightened debate about a few people, unscrupulous people, taking advantage of the need in society, especially now with a lot of uncertainty over COVID-19. Now, talking about COVID-19 is that developments have been made into getting a cure, and Kenya has been at the fore. Now, researchers at the Kenya Medical Research Institute are examining the possibility of developing an immunological assay as an antibody to test for COVID-19. The researchers at the Kilifi-based research institution says the move is aimed at complementing government's diagnostic test that seeks to establish those who might be carrying the virus. I don't know, Ram, if you have that particular story captured on the Standard. How about, Ram, we take a look at the Standard, what they have to say before we go to look at the details captured by Purity himself.
I do have that story on the Standard newspaper where we have 72 new cases as state allays fears over vaccine. Well, the Health Chief Administrative Secretary Mercy Mwangangi yesterday said the vaccine trial could not start haphazardly as there exist proper procedures for the same. Nairobi has the highest new case at 52 as Langata emerges as a new hotspot with 21 cases. But now, Kemri in Kilifi has developed a biochemical test with antibodies to detect coronavirus in the body and is already collecting samples. Kenya was recently included in the World Health Organization list as of nations to take part in the solidarity trials in the race to find a vaccine for the novel COVID-19 virus.
A day after the Ministry of Health declared that most Kenyans were giving inaccurate details during COVID-19 testing, further complicating contact tracing. Researchers at Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, in Kilifi seem to have gotten a solution. The researchers have developed an alternative tracing method that can detect virus footprints or antibodies on patients to track the number of people who may have been exposed to COVID-19 in local population.
Do commend KEMRI Wellcome Trust. I'm well aware that they have actually developed an immunoassay that they are going to utilize for antibody testing. And this is part of the seroprevalence surveys that we mentioned before. Being able to look within the community and undertake antibody testing to determine what is the prevalence of COVID-19.
Support the laboratory and support the research work. And those teams involve the field team, those that go out into the community and collect samples to allow us to understand the diseases we're investigating. We have a biobank team that manage all the samples in -80 storage, and the biobank samples are about 1 million. We have a data and IT team that supports the equipment and machinery that we have to support the research work. And we have a lab and health and safety team and a quality assurance team.
The move, according to researchers at the KEMRI Wellcome Trust in Kilifi County, is part of KEMRI's COVID-19 response aimed at helping in understanding the way the novel virus behaves in various populations.
As we get the materials that we are then going to test, those materials are stored at very low temperatures. We have the big freezers that you can see behind us. These are like your home freezers, except that the home freezer is at -20 degrees and these are at -89 degrees.
The antibody test checks whether a person has developed antibodies against the coronavirus, which may mean that person has at least some immunity. Kenya's only adopted molecular-based testing for COVID-19, which involves inserting a 6-inch long swab into the cavity between the nose and mouth for several seconds. The test already has approval from medical regulators in the EU and the United States. Purity Museo,
Channel 1 News.
It seems the national carrier has also made it to the dailies this morning with a header that says that Treasury puts KQ on 7 billion bailout appeal back on banner. The Treasury has refused to offer a commitment to the Kenya Airways request for a 7 billion emergency bailout after its aircrafts were grounded due to the restrictions on international passenger flights sparked by the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Okur Yatani said the state was keen on long-term solutions anchored in the nationalization of Kenya Airways, arguing that the carrier's financial troubles go beyond the corona-related woes. This comes at a time when Kenya Airways has scheduled a 2 flights from Nairobi to London and from London to Nairobi on the 4th and 5th of June. Now, the national carrier is urging the British nationals willing to fly back to the United Kingdom to seize the opportunity. However, Kenyans wishing to return from the United Kingdom must be prepared to undergo a mandatory quarantine between 14 to 28 days and must present a COVID-19 test results indicating their negative status. Suleiman Yeri with more details.
The national carrier says the flight to Kenya is only open to Kenyan citizens wishing to return to the country. The carrier also says all passengers aboard KQ 100 Nairobi to London on the 4th June will be subjected to COVID-19 test. The national carrier has arranged for COVID-19 test at any Lancet Kenya testing facility at a cost of 8,000 shillings. However, the carrier says all passengers aboard KQ 103 from London to Nairobi will be required to arrange for their own COVID-19 test prior to boarding the plane. It also says prior to the test, passengers will be required to provide consent for the results to be shared with Kenya Airways medical team, and results must be received 12 hours before the flight date. Passengers suffering from the coronavirus will not be allowed to board the plane, and all will be required to present a copy of COVID-19 medical result at the check-in counter. The carrier further says all passengers who will be arriving from London will undergo a mandatory quarantine of 14 to 28 days at their own cost as per Government of Kenya guidelines. Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
That was just, how about we cross over to Ram and look at the state of insecurity in Narok. Ram?
3 killed in Narok South ethnic flare-up. That is the headline there. 1 more person has been killed in clashes between 2 communities in Narok South sub-county. The Monday death brings to 3 the total number of people butchered in the ethnic flare-ups in just 48 hours. 3 killed in Narok South ethnic flare-up. Remember, the administrator also, that is the committee-led security team, had a difficult time scaling the hilly terrains for about 20 kilometers to reach the warring communities. The administrators there also ordered the residents who are armed with bows, arrows, and other crude weapons to surrender them or face arrest.
The government, following that particular state of unrest in Narok, has deployed the General Service Unit officers to the volatile Olompaki and Olorashi areas in Narok County, following those community clashes that has left so far 3 people dead and scores seriously injured on Saturday. More details from Ben Chumba.
The fighting between 2 clans at Oloruasi and Oloipanki in Narok County left 3 fatalities, scores seriously injured, and several houses torched. The clashes that erupted on Saturday evening is believed to have been sparked after a cow was allegedly stolen from Oloruasi village.
Hii ni jambo ambalo haziwezi kuruhusiwa kamwe. Na ningetaka nionye hii jamii ya Kipsigis na Masai, hapa hakuna kitu ya kupigana. Ni utovu wa nidhamu, ni hujaji wa sheria na haiwezi kuruhusiwa kamwe.
Narok County Commissioner Samuel Kimiti said the police have already launched investigations and are tracking down the suspects. 2 suspects have already been arrested and are being held at Ololunga police station.
Yote atakuonekana na silaha, yote atakayoonekana akikibia hapa na pale ama akipiga nduru, serikali itachukua hatua ya kisheria.
Committee said General Service Unit officers dispatched in the area to end the violence. Area Member of Parliament Korey Olelemain, who accompanied the security team, called for peace and cautioned residents against being incited by politicians.
Sikubali wanasiasa kukuja kujaribu kupaya nyinyi incitement kwa sababu ya mambo yao ya kesho. Hiyo nikiwa mjumbe wa hapa sitakubali.
Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
Now that story on Benchuma is what takes us to the next story this morning. And remember, we are just looking at the counties. That is in Narok County. Let's look at how other counties are affected at a time like this. And let's head over to Kisumu, where we have massive erosion threatens to wipe out entire village. Studies show acre of land in the area loses close to 120 tons of soil every rainy season through erosion. What are we talking about here? Specifically, floods. At 86, Mr. Clement Gotonya looked forward to spending his sunset years in comfort at his Agoro East village home in Nyakach, Kisumu County. But now at least 30 families, including his, have fled in the area in the last 10 years. But in his house, which he once adored, is empty with all furniture moved to a relative's home together with his animals on the right side of the compound. But we are looking at the home that is there, that has been here people have been forced to relocate in regards to that. And pictured there we have images of this man, Clement Gotonya, who shows the huge gully that caved in and forced him to flee his home at Agoro village in Nyakach, Kisumu County. Massive erosion threatens to wipe out entire village.
Now, still keeping up with the flash floods being experienced in different parts of the country is the Tana Delta flood victims marooned in homes surrounded by crocs and hippos. Tana River, 15 wards have been so far affected with over 48,000 people displaced. Now, our reporter, Joy, focused on this story, just trying to look at what this means, especially for area's residents. That's a huge number, 48,000 so far. So the only means of accessing the area is by boat, but still this has challenges. Yes, you guessed right. The issue of crocodiles and hippos. Joy has more details.
In the Tana Delta, boat operators and canoe riders go through myriad of challenges, and in particular, Mwanja area in Kipini West. The operators have to alight from their boats in the crocodile-infested river to physically cut off the grass for the boats to cross the villages. This is what villagers here have to endure every day for months now, after their houses were marooned by flood waters after River Tana broke its banks following heavy long rains. So far, 15 wards have been affected and over 48,000 people displaced by the disaster in Tana River County. Kipini West MCA Musa Wario, who accompanied journalists to Mwanja area, which was completely cut off, had to clear his way to his destination due to the adamant thick grass.
Hapa watoto mahala ambapo kwamba kidogo ni mwinuko ama nyanda za juu, ni mahala inaitwa Marafa, kilomita 10 kutoka hapa. Mtu hawezi ukapita. Saa hii mtu tayari, hivi saa hii tunakuja tayari, tumeita wale divers ndio wakaisafisha mto ndio tukapita. Hata boti yenyewe shida kuokoa watu.
The MCA defending the locals against accusations that they refuse to heed directives to move to safer grounds.
Hawa watu si hadi kupenda kwao kukaa hapa, wamekonza means ya kwenda nyanja za juu. Lakini saa hii wakipata means wako tayari kwenda hizo mara kama hizo. Lakini saa hii hawapati means yote ya kwenda pale juu.
Omar Barisa Mohammed, a boat captain from the Delta who helps the community, said they have challenges during the flood disaster.
Kulingana na hii flood ya mara hii kuna changamoto sana. Kwa sababu pahali ya kukimbia pengine 45 minutes unachukua karibu masaa mawili, saa moja na nusu, kwa sababu kuna manyasi yameziba kwa mto na magogo kuteremka, na ndani ya maji kuna ngwena, kuna viboko. Sasa ni riziki tunafanya.
The heavy rains comes at a time when the weatherman warned of continued rains this week.
All right, let's head over to look at what matters in affecting the economy. And Yatani's tax relief measures failed to cushion poor Kenyans. That is in regards to the economy. Reduction of tax obligations for farms has not shielded workers from losing their jobs. Finance bill proposes increase of levies on basic items such as cooking gas. Now, the tax relief measures that the government implemented to cushion Kenyans against the adverse economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic might have been wiped out by an increase in the cost of living. Now, there's a diagram there, table of some provisions of Finance Bill 2020. 65 years. The taxation of monthly or lump sum pension to a person who is 65 years of age or more. That is a tax NSSF's income, which will also affect pensioners. 14%, that is a proposal to introduce 14% VAT on cooking gas, which will push up the price of tax. Those earning 24,000 Kenyan shillings or below have been exempted from the pay as you earn. But now, still on that, in regards to the economy, on the front page of the Standard, at the top there, we have leaders tip Uhuru on opening economy. Different leaders, including ODM leader Raila Odinga, Laikipia Governor Ndiritu Mureithi, and Bill Okero, the former Mandera senator. According to ODM leader, let me quote him, he says, the government has so far pursued a commendable approach in handling the disease and cushioning the economy under the present circumstances. According to Laikipia Governor Ndiritu Mureithi, and I quote, it depends a lot of people's discipline. It is about human interaction, and we must find ways to enable the economy to spur without putting people at risk. And finally, towards the top right, we have a quote by Bill Okero. It is time to reopen the economy because we cannot sustain the partial lockdown. The country is not producing at its optimum as the workforce leaves by 3 p.m. to beat the curfew.
Up with what is happening around the economy on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning just has highlighted the issue of the budget, or rather the fiscal for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Now, a bid to allocate Nairobi 27.9 billion questioned. Now, Treasury CS summoned over slot from which the Nairobi Metropolitan Services will get funds. Now, Mr. Yatani, on May 14th, a letter to the National Assembly clerk, Michael Silali, proposed that the 1.77 trillion budget allocated to the national government in the next financial year be amended such that the Nairobi Metropolis, or rather, yes, draws its financing from the presidency vote head. However, yesterday, Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah, who chairs the Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly, said that his committee was confused over how Treasury wants this to happen without amending the Division of Revenue Act 2020. These developments around what is going to get what, or rather what is going to be given what under the fiscal policy for 2020-2021 continues taking shape. Remember, June 11th, Kenyans will hear, rather CS National Treasury Ukur Yatani is going to be presenting the 2020-2021 budget. That, and most economists are already asking the issue about financing this particular budget that is, was hit with the revenue generation still in question, given that most businesses are closed, and given that government from PAYE, or what you call pay as you earn, VAT collection, that is where government takes its bulk, or rather generates its bulk of its revenue. How is then the National Treasury set to accomplish this?
You updated in regards. Remember, shall we be keeping you updated in regards to this in a bit, even as we look at how the economy is affected in regards to the effects of the COVID-19 on the economy. Well, still on business, in regards to how the different sectors are faring. Dyeing Miller shuts factory until mid-July. Dyeing Miller shuts factory until mid-July. Sony Sugar cannot meet its cost of production as output has dropped to a trickle. Cash-strapped South Nyanza Sugar Company in Migori County has closed down for maintenance after its milling machines broke down. Planned to cease operations after milling machines breaks down. The major stake is in regards to this, the history of the plant since it was established in 1970. Sony Sugar is 98.8% owned by government. In regards to Sony Sugar, it has also found its increased difficulty to sustain payment to its workers. And picture there, we have a photo of a Sony Sugar employee who holds a placard during a protest over 100 million Kenyan shillings salary arrears in April last year. Anasema hapo with the placard written, Punda amechoka. Moving on to sports. On the back page of the Standard newspaper, we have a story there for the fans of sports news. Football's greatest heights when Liverpool beat Milan. Liverpool's captain Steven Gerrard holds the trophy with manager Raphael at the end of the UEFA Champions League final against AC Milan at the Ataturk Stadium in Istanbul on May 25th, 2005. Remember, from dust to glory, English club's feat 15 years on remains one of the most riveting comebacks. Crazy 6-minute spell and daring fight back eventually saw Benitez's side triumphing on penalties when Liverpool beat Milan. Well, Regina, you know you're a fan of football. I don't know if you're a fan of Liverpool or AC Milan.
Liverpool will never walk alone, but that is not enough to change my allegiance to Gor Mahia. That is the Green Army, yes. Okombe iko home, thanks to COVID. I mean, we will get it, though there's been a lot of controversy, especially with FC Leopards, you know, Mashemeji saying that God doesn't deserve that, but hey, if the games would have, we are working with if the games would have continued, would still be leading. So hey, how about we just clap for the Green Man? That puts a cap to matters in the headlines this morning. We're crossing over to the other side and talking about something that we used to think was taboo, issues of menstrual hygiene. It's time for action. Doreen coming up, so do keep it right here.
Time for our first interview of the day. We want to understand about Kasha and what they are doing to combat COVID-19. Joining me live, Malise Uwase, Health and Impact Director at Kasha. Thank you, Malise, for making time.
Good morning.
Right, good morning to you. Now, let's just get right into it. Who is Kasha and what does it do?
Yes, certainly. So, Kasha is an online and offline e-commerce platform for women's health, personal care, and menstrual care products. We started in Rwanda in 2016 and expanded to Kenya in 2018, officially launching last year. And so women in both countries can access our platform, place orders among the categories that I mentioned, and deliver it to their location of choice. To date, we have served over 60,000 unique customers across both countries and delivered over 700,000 units in terms of products. And we do specialize around menstrual care and maybe products like contraceptives or home tests like the HIV self-test kits, because we understand that these are products that women need access to, and that the access should be easy, convenient, and comfortable for them, and that is possible through an e-commerce approach.
All right, and aside from the menstrual cycle products, which other products are available on the platform?
Yes, so we have personal care products. So that means anything from soaps to lotion. We also have women's health products across a variety of categories. As I mentioned, we have contraceptives or home tests. So that includes, for example, pregnancy tests, ovulation tests, or the HIV or a self-test kit. But we also have supplements, we have cough and flu medication, we have digestive health medication. So really anything that a woman might need to take care of herself and the family of her loved one and her family and loved one.
All right. And who is your target audience, target market, and of which age brackets?
So we serve, Kasha is designed for women, but we do serve everyone. Overall, 70% of our customers are women, while 30% are men. And so we do serve both gender. I mentioned as well that we are available online and offline. Therefore, we are able to reach customers across various socioeconomic spectrum. And then in terms of age, the majority of our customers are within the range of 18 to 35.
All right, also coming up with Kasha as an online platform, what was the concept behind it, Melis?
Yes, so the concept really is the fact that women do need access to products, and they do purchase a lot of products for themselves and their family, and they're oftentimes responsible for taking care of the health of their family members as well. But access is not always easy. We all live busy lives, and for certain products like menstrual care products or contraceptives, for example, access is also not easy due to stigma. So really the concept around Kasha is how can we improve access to these products for women and make it as convenient and comfortable as possible so that they're able to access the products and it's quality products and they also have the information.
And now coming to COVID-19,
so
what?
It's really offering another channel for women to access these products.
All right, Malis, now coming to COVID-19, what are you doing as a platform in terms of activities to help protect persons during this pandemic time?
Yes, certainly. So I think the first thing is that as an e-commerce platform, we deliver products to where our customers are, which is aligned with the social distancing rules that we are all encouraged to follow during this time. And as a company and organization as well, we implemented a few changes to support our customers and also vulnerable members of the community. So for a certain period of time, especially at the beginning, we were adding a free hand sanitizer to each order placed on Kasha. And so the customer would get the package with a hand sanitizer added on free. And right now we're adding a lifebuoy soap, which is also antibacterial to each order. And we've also gone beyond and thought about how do we support vulnerable members of the community, as I mentioned. And so we organized as a nation drive and identified 250 families in Nairobi, but also in Siaya that we're going to accept as masks, hand sanitizers, soaps, sanitary towels, but also this will be a recurring donation, so it's not just a one-time.
Okay, and how have you been managing to sensitize people still on the platform in terms of them getting proper information about this disease?
Yes, so we have been sharing information across our different yes, and we also make sure that we also have products that people need during this time to protect themselves and their families, as I mentioned, hand sanitizers, masks, and other items as well. We've also launched a series of digital tools, including a forum that focuses on helping women answer questions related to contraception during this time if they're not able to access the usual channels they get access from. And we also have a live chat, and both can be used as well to ask questions around COVID-19.
Okay, you've mentioned about the forum. I want you to explain to us in detail what exactly is this community forum and what does it do?
Yeah, so the forum is a platform we created so that women can access the safe space and ask each other questions related to contraception or even fostering healthy relationships. So when you join the forum, you're able to see questions that other women have. You can ask a question yourself, and it's really this space to promote communication among women and support around issues that perhaps we're not always comfortable talking about, including even menstrual care. And it's open to all women. We have a nurse that comes in and monitors some of the replies in case maybe there's an issue around sharing information that is not correct. But it's really a community created for women that they can access on our platform so that they can ask critical questions that they don't necessarily always find answered to easily in their surrounding.
And what has been the rate of women opening up on that platform? Because sometimes it becomes an issue for women to open up about their issue. How has it been?
Yes, that is correct. And when we were studying how to develop and create the forum, that is a question we considered. The good thing is you are able to, in order to post, you need to create an account, but it is anonymous in the sense where you provide the information that you would like to share or have visible. And so we feel that by having that control mechanism in place, women are opening up and sharing and asking questions. And it's also helpful to have the nurse, again, provide support. And so we launched it about a month and a half ago, and we're seeing an increase in users daily. And as I mentioned as well, there is also a live chat where women can directly now ask questions to a nurse as well on our platform. So both tools, we're seeing an increase in users. And I think also asking questions remotely is more helpful than sometimes doing it in person. You're more empowered, even if it's not 100% anonymous. But for both of these tools, it is. So I think that simplifies the question and being upfront and transparent.
Okay, Malis, explain to us, how does this Kasha community platform work and how can one get access to it?
Yes, so to access the forum and the live chats, you will go onto our website, so kasha.co.ke, and then we have top categories that are right away visible, and so one category is titled Let's Talk Contraception, and if you click on that category, you are redirected to a landing page with more information on how you can access the forum and see what other women are asking themselves, and also join the community and ask a question if you have any.
Now, given that you deal with women and girls, what would you say is one of the major health issues that most women and girls face?
So I think generally for us, especially looking at what we specialize in, we do know that sometimes there's lack of there's misinformation, and there are lots of myths when it comes to menstrual hygiene management, and also the use or the decision to start family planning. And so women do need access to information so that they can make informed decisions. So I would say information is one, and really tied to stigma as well, and taboo, as you mentioned, where we're not always comfortable talking about these topics. And so as a result, we all have different information, and sometimes it's not helpful. So that's one challenge. And I think during this COVID-19 period as well, there is an additional aspect where women and men generally don't necessarily go to clinics or hospitals anymore to access information or products, health products that they generally need, because the clinics and hospitals are now associated with COVID-19, and so there's a lack of comfort as well getting products that they normally need, where an e-commerce approach supports with that, and combined with the information helps to address the gap.
And you mentioned misinformation and stigma, especially on matters menstrual hygiene. How do you deal with it, and probably what more can be done for people to get the right and proper information about these issues?
Yeah, so for us, we do a variety of things. As I mentioned, we have digital tools that can support in addressing questions people have confidentially, but we also, for example, conduct health education sessions within schools where we start talking to girls as well as boys early on about this topic and the fact that it's normal and it's part of the human experience, and the fact that it shouldn't be stigmatized. We also have, as I said, we have social media channels that we use to share information, to break the taboo, and we also produce blog posts that our users can find on our platform on a variety of topics, including menstrual hygiene management.
And also on the platform, have you had cases of women and even young girls complaining of gender-based violence? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
I think perhaps not directly, but with the forum, for example, one aspect is really encouraging women to discuss about relationships. And that includes creating a space where women can share and really have a supportive mechanism. Let's say in the event that you find yourself in a relationship that is not positive, you're aware of the sign. You might hear from other women and what they did in order to break that aspect in their lives. And so we don't hear directly because, again, women access normally our platform for information and products, but we have created a space where women can share. And also with gender-based violence, sometimes it means you are not free of movement, and again, being able to access information remotely or having health products that you need delivered to you directly can also be helpful during that time.
Yeah, you mentioned relationship. Probably what kind of training do you give the women and girls on how they can have better and proper relationships?
Sure, I think it really starts with sharing about what a healthy relationship looks like, and the fact that both partners should be involved and supportive of one another, a relationship devoid of violence, and really fostering communication and respect across both partners and being able to support that. Also normalizing relationships as well, because I think sometimes when we don't, that's when people engage and it's more hidden. They're not willing to share when they're having issues. But if it's normalized, then you know you have other women that you can count on and ask questions and really get the support you needed in the case you're not in a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. And what could be a recommendation on people being able to foster a healthy relationship? What would you recommend?
You know, the first thing is really communication, and also having friends and family that you can talk to, or at least if you're having issues and challenges. I think overall every relationship should feel positive, and so you really have to see if there are negative things that keep happening and you've discussed them but it's a trend, then that's when you need to take a step back. And you know, it's better to be, I always say that at the end of the day you just want to live your life in a way that is positive and happy. And so if you're not there, then you have to reconsider and really take a stand for yourself, because at the end of the day, if you don't, it's really challenging for other people to intervene as well. So really be in tune with your relationship and understand if there are any negative traits. Are they recurring? Have you had these discussions and they're not leading to where you want things to be? And learn that it's okay to take a step back or walk away if you don't feel comfortable. You should always feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Great. And since the community platform was open, what are some of the gains you've made?
So I think what is, and it's not as if the plan was in conjunction with COVID-19. We always wanted to have the forum. I think one gain is that in this time, specifically people do need access to information. So we did poll and conduct focus groups and research before creating both the forum and the live chat. And some of the polls we conducted really indicated that a lot of women needed information. We're proactive in seeking information online, but we're not finding the right space or source in terms of trusting the information that they found. So having the forum has simplified that for our users, as well as the live chat, because they can directly ask these questions and they do trust the brand and the forum itself. And again, it's more critical nowadays because of social distancing and the fact that we don't necessarily see the people that we used to see on a daily basis, and we don't always have our support group with us on a daily basis.
All right. And yes, it's a platform, a safe space for women and girls. But what are some of the downsides and even the challenges that you've come across running that platform?
So I would say just from for us being an e-commerce platform in East Africa, e-commerce is still new somehow. I do think Kenya is more advanced, but still we do have challenges where you need to educate your audience on how to access the platform. Who are in low-income areas, we, for example, recruit agents and train them so that they can support women in their short code. And so I think really the main challenge is raising awareness and getting people to adopt the technology and feel comfortable using it, which is what we spend a lot of months on initially in any country focusing on.
All right, great. And as we draw the conversation to a close, Malise, you could have used any other platform to pass information, but you just chose to go online to do that. So why so, and how has it been faring on for you?
Sorry, Doreen, could you please repeat the question?
I'm saying that you could have chosen to use any other platform to pass the same kind of information to women and girls, but you chose the online platform. Tell us why so and how that has been faring on.
So as I mentioned, all of these tools that we developed are developed following research that we conduct. So focus groups with our own users and non-users as well. An example I can give is 1.3 polled over 3,000 women on if they ever needed to access this type of information but had struggled. And if they struggled, we give them a series of causes for the struggle. And so we found that for all these women, over 85% had struggled finding an answer to a question related to these topics, and over 43% had actually tried to find the answer online but couldn't, and around 30% said that they just didn't have anybody to ask, and 23% indicated that it was due to stigma. So what these numbers do show somehow is that women do have questions. They are proactive as well as girls in seeking the right information and looking for it online, but they're not able to find trustworthy sources, and some just don't have anyone they can ask, and stigma is another issue. So then we tested these tools and try to see, would then this be the right channel for you to then ask that question and get the information you need? And the response was yes. So it's really around, we did identify a gap. The gap is still here, and women are proactive in seeking information. They just don't have the right sources, and they are using technology.
Okay, thank you very much, Malise Wase, for your time and talking to us about Kasha, the e-commerce platform, and what the platform is doing to combat COVID-19. Thank you for your time.
Tonight on Corner.
Sleep on the job? Why does everyone keep shouting?
This is the time he needs you. The two of you function best when you're a pair.
I've tried to make up. You have the audacity to judge me? I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, during working hours. And make an appointment like everyone else.
I heard that you're settled down, that you found a girl and you're sometimes it hurts instead. Sometimes it lasts and loves, but sometimes it hurts.
Good morning once again. If you're tuning in, this is KBC Channel 1 and it's Health Tuesday. I'm Regina Manyara-Gitao. Now over 800 million girls and women menstruate daily globally. And even in the 21st century, they still face barriers towards menstrual hygiene. This morning, we're talking about menstrual hygiene, the barriers therein, and the trends and emerging trends that have come in, and the role that private sector and government can play to ensure that every woman, every girl gets that particular support during that particular time of the month. Joining me this morning, two lovely ladies, experts in their own right. We have Saiton Tameno, who is a Cortex Digital Manager, West and East Central Africa. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Waithera Wambara, who is Linda Afi Manager and a counseling psychologist at that. Good morning, Waithera.
Good morning.
Glad to have you on board. As you're talking about Menstrual Hygiene Day 2020, May 28th, yes, it's time for action. As we sit, issues of menstrual hygiene over the years have been regarded to as taboo and lots of stigma. Has this changed in the 21st century? Saiton, what do you think? Have we changed this?
I'd say we've made a lot of progress over the years. However, we still have a long way to go. One of the things that as a brand we really take seriously is education on menstrual health. And one of the things that we do is we go into universities and we talk to the girls and the women and we sample and we give them product and we educate them on the use of the products. Additionally, what we do is we're very active on social media. As you see, last week we had a concert online, and one of the things that we're doing is activating and working with influencers online, in addition to our social media and our website, to create avenues for women to discuss these things and to be able to learn more about it. I'd say we still have to do a lot more as a country and as a society to ensure that there's no more shame around menstrual health.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Saiton. Now, Wambara, Waithera, from your point as a psychologist, what impact has stigma had on menstrual hygiene?
I would say it really affects the girls' mental health, because the fact that we really don't have enough education about menstrual health, a lot of girls are really suffering with menstrual-related illnesses because we don't have these discussions at home. We do not have these discussions in school.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now, there's always been this thought that discussions around menstrual hygiene are only for women. Is that the case, or is it a topic that everyone needs to get on board on?
I would say with women making 50% of the population, it is a discussion for the entire population. Whether a man is married, has sisters, has a mother, this is a conversation that needs to be had by every single person.
Mm-hmm. Now, right now, children are at home, and we have single-parent families, especially where it's only the dad and the children. Then how do we go about to having these conversations out there in the open, and where we do not feel, we don't make our adolescents feel a little bit shy, or how do we deal with that conversation, especially in the home setting?
This is where I'll side with Saiton when she says we need a lot more education on menstrual health, menstrual products, and this needs to be covered by both boys and men. Let us not focus on women and the girls only. Let us also talk to the boys. Let us also talk to the men. Let us have it as an everyday conversation, so that everyone can be able to talk about it. We are reducing stigma by talking about it every day.
Yes. Many may wonder why menstrual hygiene is important. You know, people say it's just a cycle, it's part of biology, but why then is menstrual hygiene important? Saiton.
So one of the things is, this is an event that happens in a woman's life for a significant number of years, from the beginning of menarche all the way to menopause, which could be 20, 30 years of a woman's life. And out of that, 3 to 7 days of that in a month are spent having a period. This could be, and periods are experienced in various different ways. So one of the things is, because it takes such, even just by looking at the amount of time it occupies in a woman's life, that alone should show that it is an important thing to pay attention to. Again, when we discuss this, women who do not have access to menstrual products, they are often not able to go to work or not able to go to school, and this takes away from the country economically and even from the quality of life. So just in terms of it being a basic need, it needs to be something that we take seriously as a nation, as a society.
Now, in November 2019, the government approved the National Menstrual Hygiene Policy. So far, what has the implementation of this particular policy, what effect has it had in Kenya's quest to attain mental hygiene? Maybe for you, Saito.
I would say it is a really good step in the right direction, but so far I believe we only cover about just around 500,000 girls, and I believe this needs to be expanded so that it needs to be a necessary thing that we implement across the country, and especially across informal settlements and rural areas where there's still a great need for menstrual hygiene products.
Mm-hmm. Wambara, coming back to you, the issue of menstrual hygiene, especially for girls who are just moving from adolescence to adulthood, has been somewhat a challenge, especially expressing themselves and getting to know, trying to understand exactly what is happening with their bodies. Maybe you can take us through, just talk to a parent there or a child who is experiencing that, to put them at ease and what they should be looking out for during this time. Wambara.
Yes, I feel like these conversations, it should not be a taboo. It should not be something that we shy away from. Something like menstrual pain. This is not something that should be normalized. Another thing we tend to forget is that we tend to assume that menstruation is something that happens to a woman 3 days in a month and all that. But this is an ongoing process. It starts from the first day to the last. There are different changes that girls need to look out for. There are different hormones affecting the girl child, and we need to look out for these things. We need not to assume that just because so and so had it like this, so mine will be like this. We need to have open conversations about this.
Mm-hmm. Now, yes. Talking about open conversations, especially in the school setup and boarding school per se, we have different categories of, girls. There's early bloomers, late bloomers. The issue of menstrual cycle has been pegged on, so many other things. Especially for those who start their cycle, maybe we need to confirm how young can a child actually start their menses, or how late and within the safe bracket, or rather normal bracket, Wambara.
For the girl child, there is really no specific age, because there are some who start as early as 9 years while still in primary school, and there are those girls who it affects even post-high school. There are women who have menstruation after Form 4. So it shouldn't be stigmatized that maybe my menstruation started early, there's something wrong with me, or my menstruation is going to be, it started when I'm 18, so there's something wrong with me. But in case you're doubting something, always speak to a gyna. It's good to always consult a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Consult a doctor as the age is early or late early age of 9 years or post-high school. My director, Amos, there is a bit concerned with the issue of post-high school menses. Well, it can happen, Amos, and there's no particular year for that. But now, Saiton, over to you. With the government policy there that you've mentioned that we need to expand to have more girls covered under that particular policy, what role is the private sector players doing to just support efforts towards menstrual hygiene?
I would say as a brand, Kotex has been very forward in supporting community-based organizations all across the country to ensure that, especially in this time of COVID, when women are suffering an even more severe lack because of lack of access to funds and lack of access to work, that we are supporting them. So this is something that any private sector organization can take part in, and it's very simple to get in touch with all the various CBOs that are supporting women and supporting menstrual health to ensure that you support women for a period of time to get menstrual hygiene products.
Now, under this campaign, I dubbed She Can, and in line with this year's theme, which is Call to Action. Maybe you can just elaborate on, what the company is doing and what other sector players can do to support this particular campaign.
So the She Can campaign is a campaign that was started in 2019 by Kotex to celebrate women who embody the Kotex values, of authenticity, connectivity, and who exhibit the values of women who can do it. And what we're looking for is women who, despite their circumstances, are living life, breaking barriers, and inspiring others around them.
Very well. That is the She Can campaign there. Now, the issue of menstrual hygiene, not talking about the issue of availability and affordability of the products out there. Saiton, we've heard an issue, especially in off-grid or rather marginalized areas, where sanitary towels is something that is totally unheard of. How has this affected, the campaign towards menstrual hygiene?
I would say this has been a very key factor. Not everywhere in the country is covered, and in line with what the government is doing, this should be one of the key areas that they should focus on to ensure that women in hard-to-access areas find menstrual hygiene products.
Now, being a person who's already within, the marketing region, or rather knowing what is out there in the market, we have emerging trends that have elicited a lot of controversy. The cups, and the tampons, where people do not understand, what is that? We're used to the ordinary parts. Now, with the emergence of the new trends, what does the future portend for menstrual hygiene?
I believe the future is very bright for menstrual hygiene. All of these solutions and new innovations that come to ensure that women have dignity at the time of their periods. And this is something that we stand for as a brand, and we support innovations. Even within our own brand, we are constantly innovating and constantly looking to create solutions for women. An example is that we've just launched our Maxi Pad, which is something that came as based on feedback from women, that they wanted a longer pad from us. They wanted something that was more thick and absorbent, and we have done that. So innovations work for women.
Innovations work for women there. Now, Waithera Wambara, there's an issue, or rather some of the feedback that we're getting out, the issue of what does, if what I use affect my thought process. I think this is in regard to those girls who end up using blankets to just wash and, and because they cannot afford to get a sanitary towel. Then this is someone who is asking if that indeed affects the way a girl feels or thinks about themselves. Wambara, how does that affect?
Yes, that one greatly affects how a girl feels. It affects them physically and also mentally. That's why we need more innovations. That's why we have the different products. We have the cups, we have the different types of sanitary pads, we have the tampons, so that if you're a menstruating woman, you need to try out some of these products to understand what is most comfortable with you, what makes you feel as if you're okay, you're not being inconvenienced by the periods. Yes.
Now in this time, in current times of COVID-19, we've seen different measures here and there that include, restriction of movement. How has this affected distribution and actually production of these necessary items, Saiton?
I would say we have been able to get exemptions, and our distribution is still going on as normal. So for us, it has been we've been able to work around the current restrictions to ensure that we're delivering to our consumers and they have access to our products. What we always advise our consumers is if in their particular area they can't find, go to our social media pages, communicate, and we will ensure that we get the products to you.
Okay. Now, whether back to you, within the home setup, the issue of, disposing of these particular products. There's already a lot of shame and embarrassment that we're going through menses, though it's not supposed to be so. The issue of this proper disposal and how it affects, how things run within a home, especially in the peri-urban centers.
Okay. For this, I would say, let's start with that first conversation. Let's first start with how do I, when you're talking to maybe someone maybe it's your first time menstruating, when you're talking to your parent, whether it's male or female, when you're talking about this whole menstruation, let's talk about disposal. Let's talk about the proper way to dispose of these products. Let's talk about different products and their ways of disposal. Talk about things such as the flushing, such as how do I dispose of this properly, and how do I also store my sanitary products properly and hygienically. Yes.
Now, still on you there, Waziri Mbara, the issue of how do men then come into this? How do we rope in our fathers, our brothers, our uncles to come in and support, as a woman works at attaining menstrual hygiene?
Well, we need to remember that every woman, as much as you want to ignore and focus and say this is a woman's issue, that woman is also your workmate. That woman is your sister. That woman is your daughter. This thing means that it's affecting us either indirectly or directly. So as much as we'd want to ignore it and leave it to the woman, it will also affect her. It also affect you as a man. Because as much as it's not just periods, there are also hormones that affect our moods, our emotions. And men will also feel this change of emotions, change of moods. They need to understand why. Yes.
Now, has there been enough awareness about, menstrual hygiene and the need for menstrual hygiene, Saiton, from your end? Have we done enough in just, promoting menstrual hygiene?
I would say not yet. As I said before, there's still a long way to go. I believe, for example, that education on menstrual health should be for both men and women. I believe that it should be presented as a fact of life and from a very young age, so that people grow up knowing that it is normal and it is what women go through. I would say also additionally in terms of having this discussion, I'm very grateful for social media because the influencers that we see online have been expanding the discussion on this particular topic, and we can do a lot more, and we need to do a lot more, especially for those who don't have access to internet and things like that.
Now, Waziri Wambara, there was a lot of debate in the inclusion or rather exclusion, or they needed to have children taught about sexual or rather reproductive health. And talking about matters of menstrual cycle is an integral part of reproductive health. Is there a right time to begin having these conversations?
Well, I would say you'd need to start these conversations at a very early age. The whole reproductive health covers sexuality, covers menstruation. And this is not just, it's not about the sex or that. It's about a woman understanding her body from an early age. The earlier the child understands this is what to expect, this is how my body is, this is what I will expect going forward, this is what and how I'm supposed to react to whatever is expected. And we also need to focus and teach these girls that it's not just menstruation. There are things that come with it. There are some who get menstruation-related illnesses. We need to look out for that. And if a girl child or even a boy child knows these things early, they are more mentally prepared to handle this. Yes.
Now, Saiton, you've mentioned the National Menstruation Hygiene Policy. As a firm, have you been involved in this particular project that also includes the distribution of sanitary towels across schools in the country? Have you been involved? And if you have, so far, what are your expectations?
So I would say we haven't been involved in particular with the policy, but we do this on our own. So every year we go into particularly universities and we do give education, and we do ensure that the girls have samples of products. And the education is on menstrual health and on use of menstrual hygiene products. So what I would say is we look forward to doing this in a greater avenue and to support the government even more.
I want to take you back to the issue of quality products out there in the market. There's been talk, especially on social media, about various products that are already available in our local market. Now, given that you take care of West, East, and Central Africa, let's talk about the quality of products, sanitary products out here in the market.
So what I would say, there's a variety of products and quality of products. As a brand, what I would say is we take the care of our consumers very, very seriously. And so for us, it is important that the products that we provide to this market are products that we use in other markets. So our products are standardized across the world, and we ensure that we give whatever our consumers need. If there is any feedback on particular things, we take that in, and we ensure that we take this into consideration. We are a brand that is known for listening to our consumers, and that's what we pride ourselves on.
Now, Waithera Wambara, we'd want to borrow something from you as a counseling psychologist. And this is for girls who've gone through, shame during their menstrual period. They have leaks, they are in school. How do you, overcome trauma during menses, especially trauma related, to mishaps during the menstrual cycle?
I'd say talk to someone, talk to the person in charge. If you're in school, talk to the matron, talk to the headmistress. Do not keep quiet about what is happening to you. Do not feel shame of what is happening to you. Talk. Yes.
But now, the issue, I think, with talk is that who do I talk to? Who is the right person to talk to?
Talk to the people in charge, depending on your situation. If it's a boarding school, there are matrons who are in charge. There are nurses. There is a school nurse, I'm sure, in every school, primary and boarding. Talk to them and be very honest about what you're experiencing, what you're afraid of in terms of your menstruation. In case you feel that something is not right with your periods, maybe when you're talking to your friends and they tell you, I have it for 3 days, and you have been having it for 11 days, talk to the nurse and tell them what you're worried about. And then if you are able to do more research online, do it. Yes.
Talk, especially those who have gone through shame during their menstrual cycle, that you need to get someone you can trust to have that particular conversation. Remember, #period or not, yes, she can. It is a May 28th where we're talking about menstrual hygiene, and it's a call for action. Our guest here this morning reminding us that this is not just a conversation to have among the women folk. Remember, through the women, we bring forth life. So it is your issue as well as my issue. Now, as we come to a close, Saiton and Waithera, I just want to have, your feedback in where we stand as a country, given our different traditions and customs when it comes to menstrual hygiene. Saiton.
I would say the benefit of where we are as a country is that there's a lot of access to information, that we are growing, and we're seeking to ensure that we educate everyone across the different cultures. What I would say is we definitely need to do a lot more in ensuring that the conversation is both between men and women, girls and boys, because this is a societal thing. And we need to ensure that we make menstrual hygiene products as accessible as possible, and that we ensure the conversation normalizes menstrual health.
Waithera, what do you have to say about the future? What does the future portend in as far as menstrual hygiene is concerned for Kenya?
Okay, I feel we are headed in the right direction in terms of education, but we also need to look at the language that we use when we are communicating about menstruation. I feel we need to break down the language so that everyone can understand, even those ones who do not have formal education. We need to have these conversations in different language, broken down to the simplest form, so that everyone can understand it, everyone can take part of this in this conversation.
So come Thursday, which happens to be May 28th, the world will be marking Menstruation Hygiene Day. And the theme for this year is it's time for action. And this is not just pegged on you being female, but it's not based on gender, religion, or faith. This is something that we have to discuss going forward. My guests this morning have been Saiton Tameno Riga, who is a Cortex Digital Manager, West, East, and Central Africa. Thank you for coming. And flanked by Waithera Wambara, Linda Afia Manager, Counseling Psychologist. Thank you for making time. Waithera.
Thank you.
There you've heard it. We've been talking about menstrual hygiene and the importance it has on the development of our society. It's not a female thing. It's a concern for each and every person. Come 28th, let us stand up in action and ensure that we attain that. I'm Regina Manyara Gitao. I leave you in the able hands of my colleague, Ram Aguko, for the next topic of discussion. Ram.
All right. Moving forward this morning, we'll be discussing the effects of the COVID-19 on employment. Joined live by the CS, by the Permanent Secretary, Principal Secretary for Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. Very good morning to you, sir. Hope you're well. Remember, in regards to this, the toll of the COVID-19 has taken on the economy is very big, even as we talk about it also trickling down to the homes. According to the report, a report that was tabled in Parliament by the Ministry of Labour and Social Protection, we have 133,657 Kenyans who are said to have been rendered jobless. And this is a report that was prepared by the ministry and taken to a parliamentary committee. And all of these people who lost their jobs so far are in the formal sector. And the number excludes employees on unpaid leave and those who have taken the pay cuts. Most of the affected sectors include transport, aviation, hospitality and tourism, manufacturing, wholesale and trade, agriculture, and the informal sector. So even as we talk about the impact of COVID-19 on employment, make sure that you give us your take in regards to this. How has COVID-19, how has the coronavirus affected your employment as a Kenyan? Are you affected? What do you think about the stimulus package that the government put in place and the president released on Saturday, giving his release in regards to that? The Principal Secretary will be joining us in a bit, but keep tweeting, keep texting. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya at Ram Aguko. Well, joining me live is the Principal Secretary. Good morning, sir. Hope you are well. We're looking at the government hiring 200,000 youths to clean towns and 10,000 teachers and 5,000 health workers. The government has also spent billions of shillings in regards to this. What is your take in regards to the stimulus package, and how do you think it will be able to make things work well, especially in regards to cushioning the impact of COVID-19 on employment?
Thank you very much, Ram. Good morning, viewers. Before I look at that question that you've asked, let's look at the fundamentals of labor, because we are talking from the point of view of labor, and we know very well that labor is a factor of productivity. And what is labor? Labor is that effort that you or services. And when we look at labor from that fundamental, we are looking at people or workers exacting physical, mental, and intellect. And why would they exact that? Because at the end of the day, they would want to receive some kind of reward. So looking at it from that point of view, when we got this impact of COVID, what did the government do? This is a pandemic that just appeared without, without the knowledge of everyone the world over. So as a Ministry of Labor, we needed to look at the labor relations aspect of it first, because quickly we decided and said, these are people who have been working normal working hours. They have been working for a salary. or they have been working in an informal sector where they are self-employed and they are able then to apply their intellect, they apply their physical energy in order to give a product or a service. So we met as social partners through the leadership of the CS Labor. We called the social partners and we said, can we sit down? Because we have acts that govern the issues of labor in this country, like the Employment Act. Now we agreed and said we need to have our employees work from home. We'll need our employees also earning half a salary, because the enterprises that were then employing them could not pay the salaries because they were not making any profit. So we domesticated an ILO guidelines that had been given to us, and we said, let's domesticate so that we now ensure that there is no, industrial disharmony. And that is why the ministry exists. It exists to ensure that at workplaces we have labor relations. Mm-hmm. We have people that can work with specific guidelines. So we came up with those guidelines, and part of that was that because in the labor relations, we did not have a situation where we needed people to work from home. Within the Labor Relations Act, we did not then have a situation where people would be paid half salary. So we needed to come up with some guidelines that, when the employees work from home, they will be paid at least for 3 months. And that is what we did as a government. We have gazetted that aspect of the labor relations, and we have domesticated what came from ILO. Now, on the side of the informal sector, you are aware that we have around 8.
All right, that is a PS speaking to us in regards to that. We'll be listening to him in a bit. Slight network issues there when it comes to reaching him, giving us a brief overview of what the ministry is all about and the purpose of their work in regards to this. So, PS. All right, you can continue from where you left on. All right, we shall be linking up with him in a bit, giving us his take on the impact of COVID-19 on employment in both the formal sector and the informal sector. Remember, we have a stimulus package that will be unwrapping in a bit, and we shall also be unwrapping the effects of this COVID-19 on the different areas of the country. So, PS, I hear that we're back, so you can continue from where you left on. Just continue giving us the picture of how things are. All right, Engineer?
I hope I'm getting heard.
All right. So, Engineer, picking up from where you left.
So I left it when
I just continue.
Yes, I left when I was discussing about the formal and the informal sector.
Yes.
And I say the number of employees in this country is around 18.1 million. Mm-hmm. And we said that around 3 million are the ones that are employed in the formal sector. And that is a group that was really affected by the COVID-19. The effect in his own enterprise, where he employs 2 or 3, and it depends on the earnings that he receives from, the market in order to be able to. These people had to be thrown out of business. And that is why now, earlier on, the government, His Excellency the President, had given an economic stimulus to the formal sector through tax rebates and the rest of them. Now, this time round, he has really injected money into the communities through the economic stimulus that he gave over the weekend on 23rd. And as a government, you realize that then when you inject a lot of funds into the community through the Kazi Mtaani by the youth, through the enterprises that focus on the communities, then you realize that there's money that is circulating within communities in the counties and everywhere. And that is when now people can be able to make a living. But going back to what we are doing as a government and in the Ministry of Labor, we have ensured that when this economic stimulus is being given to enterprises, when the economic stimulus is being injected into communities, the labor relations aspect of it is taken care of. And that is why, like I earlier on said, we put in place mechanisms to ensure that the employees and the employers themselves are able to dialogue during this pandemic period. And the dialoguing basically are just two issues. One, if the CBA that we signed is talking about me working from a specific location, with this pandemic now that allows me to work from home, how do we do the payment aspect of it? Number two, now that the enterprise is not making that much money in terms of profits that we had anticipated earlier, how then am I supposed to be paid half salary without negating on what we had, agreed upon in our CBAs? And that is why now we come in as a Ministry of Labor to ensure that the employer and the employee are dialoguing in this pandemic period and they are able to cushion. So as a government, we are taking various approaches. First approach, like you know, is the public health, where that is being taken care of by the Ministry of Health, and that is how we should be able to behave when we are in social places, the distancing and that kind of thing. And then the Ministry of Labor, through the Labor Department, is looking at social protection and also to ensure that there is social dialogue within the enterprises so that people are cushioned against job losses.
All right.
And the economic stimulus that has been given by the President over the weekend is just to ensure that, one, the jobs are protected, two, the enterprises are also protected, and three, there are new jobs that are created.
But
and
now,
four, to ensure that the new vulnerable groups that have been thrown out of their jobs are cushioned by the government.
Bwana PS, the government is set to hire, just as you've mentioned. So we have a number of 200,000 youths to clean towns, 10,000 health teachers, 5,000 health workers as part of the stimulus package that you've just mentioned that was unveiled on Saturday. But now, from your view, what is your expected result when it comes to the outcome of how this money will catalyze local economies from bottom up across the country?
That economic stimulus and the numbers that you've really counted, and we want to thank the President for this, is that now the youth are able to earn a living despite the problems that we have having been brought about by the COVID-19. And like I said earlier on, we had approached as a government from the aspect of the employers themselves. This time round, we are approaching from the aspect of the SMEs and preservation of jobs themselves. So if you look at the sectors, the improvement of health and social protection, that speaks for itself. At least health is improved by creating, ensuring that the frontline workers are taken care of by the government, and two, so that they can be able to offer that service that is critically needed at this particular moment of the pandemic. Enhancing SMEs liquidity, just by providing money or funds for purposes of employing the youth to provide cleanliness through the Kazi Mtaani program. That is what the government has ensured, that at least there is an injection of some economic activity within the counties. So basically, bottoms up has been taken care of by the government. And up-down has also been taken up by the government through the tax rebates. So what this government has been able to do, and we want to thank the President for that, is to ensure that the impact.
All right, that's the CS speaking about the impact of COVID-19 in regards to the stimulus package, the stimulus package that has been put in place. So Bwana PS, right, we're back. So pick it up from just where you left. Bwana PS, hope you can hear me now. In regards to the package that you are highlighting, how is it going to affect the the local economy from bottom up?
earlier on before I went off air is that up, down, the tax rebates that the government gave earlier on to the enterprises was to ensure that we preserve jobs. And like I said, when it comes to the issue of social dialogue at that particular level in the formal sector, we are there as a ministry to ensure that the guide here too. And I said earlier, social partners, so that again we create what we call harmony, social harmony within the workplaces. Okay. And that one we have done, and like I said, we have already gazetted the guidelines which are domesticated from the ILO. And then the other aspect is the economic stimulus that you are talking about that was given by His Excellency the President over the weekend on 23rd. And that basically was looking at improvement of health and social protection. It was to enhance SMEs liquidity. Approach in ensuring that there is liquidity at the community level. And that, again, the second aspect of it is to ensure that there is employment and job preservation at that level within the community. So that is going to ensure that at least the impact of COVID is brought to a level that we can,
Now, let's now trickle down to the employers and the employee. We shall be doing that and unwrapping a few things. Let me look at the welfare of the employees. Do you see? We have the Employment Act of 2017, and I will also be touching on the 2020 Tax Amendment Bill that was signed into law by the President. Now, so let me touch on the Tax Amendment Bill. President Kenyatta signed that into law, and based on your feedback or your thoughts, what's the impact of this so far, bearing in mind that it directed, among other measures, that employers be barred from sacking their workers or forcing them to take pay cuts during this COVID-19 pandemic? All right, Bwana PS, we seem to have lost you there. Remember, we are having this discussion with the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, Engineer Peter, when it comes to this. All right, I don't know, do we have the PS again? Okay, so we'll be getting a link up with him in a bit in regards to the effects of the coronavirus on the economy. Remember, so many jobs have been lost in regards to this pandemic. When it comes to the stimulus package, it was released on Saturday by the President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have the bills that were passed into law, including the 2020 Tax Amendment Bill that directed, among so many other measures, employers be barred from sacking people during this COVID-19 or forcing them to take pay cuts as a result of the pandemic. So, Bwana PS, all right, I'm told we're back. All right, so give us a picture in regards to this, the effects of the 2020 Tax Amendment Bill that was passed into law by the President on the common mwananchi. PS.
Thank you very much. We went off air when we were just discussing about the Employment Act.
Yes.
And I talked about Employment Act being now, seen like we cannot be able to implement the act as it is, because that act was deemed to be working when there was normalcy in this country. But now there is a new normal that is coming, and we are saying, as a Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, our responsibility is to ensure that there is harmony between the employer and the employee. And therefore, then, what we've done is that we have put together guidelines that govern, the working relations between the employer and the employee. One of them being that working from home. 2, taking leave for a period of 3 months. And then the third one is to ensure that those that have exhausted their leave can now go to work from home, but at half pay. And that is something that the employer and the employee must sit down and work together. But what we are talking about is what will happen immediately and in post-COVID, because these were not anticipated, and so far, so good. Although we've lost very many jobs, what is happening is that the government has come in through the tax relief and the economic stimulus that the president gave to ensure that people are not, employees and employers are not affected that much.
But now,
like I said, the social partners are aware of this. That is FKE and KOTU, and we have had discussions and we have appended our signatures on a document that then spells out how the two should be able to behave. That is the employer and the employee in this period of COVID-19.
Now, just delve deeper in regards to this. For those who have lost jobs already, how do we look into their cases?
Now, probably I should have started by talking about the structure of the ministry within this COVID pandemic. Not the ministry, but the Department of Labor, which I lead. And what we are having is that we have a response team that is domesticated, that is domiciled in the Ministry of Labor here, that looks at 3 areas. The first area is actually the employment aspect of it and the social dialogue, and that is under the Department of Labor. That is looking at the industrial harmony and all that. And then we have another one that looks at the responses that are coming from the field in terms of those that have been have lost jobs, those ones, so that from the agreement that we had with the social partners, we are able then to gauge which employer is sending their employees away genuinely. Having exhausted the stimulus package that was given as a result of the tax relief, and also having brought in the issue that the president gave in the other day on the economic stimulus.
And can
so
you be able
ours
to
is to
deduce to
monitor
that?
and ensure that there is congruence of mind between the employer and the employee when it comes to the aspect of relieving employees to go home or work on half pay and that kind of thing. That is number 2. And then the other one is looking at the migrant workers. You know very well that migrant workers is like a jewel to this economy. They have been remitting around 23 billion every month in the year 2019, and that has come down because of this pandemic, because as we all know, that all of us have been affected. So even those that are working in Qatar, for example, in the GCC countries and elsewhere, have been affected by the same pandemic. And that is why then we have come up with an interagency group that is looking at the migrant workers, so that wherever they are also taken care of, because they are Kenyans at the end of the day. So now, what is happening is that we are monitoring closely what is happening at the shop level. Remember also that this ministry is not only taking care of those that are losing employment, we are also taking care of those that are remaining in employment because of 2 things. One is occupational safety and health. Remember that we have a team that goes around to ensure that even as we fight this pandemic, and even as we grapple with it, the workplaces are very safe for those who are working. And that is a team that is domiciled in the Ministry of Labor that is looking at that aspect of it. So generally, labor is taking a agency approach, so that we are looking at social protection, we are looking at protection for the new vulnerables that have been thrown out of employment. We are also looking at those that are, in the migrant workers that want to come, and those ones that are working. And then we are looking at the social aspect of the workplaces.
Now, as you look at the social aspects of the workplaces, let's take a look at the strategy when it comes to safeguarding the safety of the employees. You mentioned quite a bit when it comes to the agenda that the government has put in place, and I'd like to touch on one of the big 4 agenda, manufacturing, because majority of those affected are in the manufacturing sector. And that is also based on the document or the report that was released by your ministry and was sent to Parliament. Manufacturing is one of the pillars of the Big Four agenda. But now what is the plan that is put in place in achieving the Big Four agenda, bearing in mind that the manufacturing industry has also been stricken by this COVID-19 pandemic, with so many job losses being experienced in that sector?
Yes, I agree with you. Among the sectors that have really been affected by the pandemic sector, tourism, and many of them. And like you've said, that is one of the Big Four agenda of the president. And when you look at the aspect of manufacturing, what we've done as a government is to ensure that we've encouraged ourselves to ensure that we buy what is manufactured in this country. And that is what will ensure that we don't lose jobs, because then we'll have provided a market within ourselves and ensure that then the jobs are we don't lose. But what the government has been able to do through the economic stimulus package is that to ensure that the SMEs are enhanced in terms of enhancing their liquidity, so that the people are not sent home, those that are working in those sectors. So we have decided as a government to take various approaches to ensure that the job losses are minimized as much as possible through these economic stimulus and the other one that we had given, the tax rebates.
And looking at what we have done so far as a nation, just picking an example of what we did with the ventilators. We came up with our own locally manufactured ventilators right here in the country. What should we be looking out for? Why can't we also come up with also some labor rules that can ensure the safety and security of our locally manufactured products? I remember the president was mentioning Buy Kenya, Build Kenya.
The rules and regulations are there, and they are very, very clear. What is happening is that we've encouraged those manufacturers that are manufacturing and want to sell in the local market to ensure that the quality of the products is maintained. And how do you ensure that that is done? Once these things, the products have been taken through KEBS and they have been given a clean bill of health, we don't have a problem selling it. Yeah. So what is happening is that, like I said, we have a agency team that is looking at the production that is under the Ministry of Industrialization, and encouraging, like for example, the masks that were in need in this country. There are so many enterprises now that are producing masks, including the National Training Authority of the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. And they are producing around 6,000 masks every week, sold for as low as 50 shillings per mask, and these ones are reusable. So what we are saying is that as a government, we have also put in place mechanisms to ensure that the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya aspect of, encouragement is being done, and it is being led by the government itself. So we don't need to generate other rules apart from those ones that are already there, because we put in place mechanisms to ensure that once you produce and you put it in the market, they are given preference. And ours is just to sensitize and ensure that, yes, they are of quality, yes, they are able to do what is required to do, and that is why we are buying as a country. And when you look at the aspect of ensuring that our workplaces are also safe, like I said, we have the OSH department, the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, that is monitoring those enterprises that are producing what is supposed to be used in this country. So it is an interagency approach that therefore ensures that what we are producing is of quality. Two, that we have a ready market within ourselves that can be able to take, because of the issue of the demand and the production.
Now, according to the report that you had tabled in Parliament, and I quote, the numbers are likely to rise, the number of unemployment. Said the numbers are likely to rise because most companies are yet to notify the Ministry of redundancies. as required under the Employment Act of 2017, end of quote. So how have you been able handling all these different stakeholders, considering that this is what you said? How are you handling the different stakeholders, companies or employment agencies throughout this whole period?
That report was given from my ministry a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And I think it is a month ago. And what we did is that we were in the process of putting in place mechanisms of getting that information, and also encouraging enterprises and employers to ensure that they don't undertake redundancy issues before they clear with the ministry. But now, like I said, we put in place a rapid response mechanism in this ministry that therefore, works together with the employees and the employers to ensure that that redundancy that is being undertaken by an enterprise has been sanctioned in a manner that, yes, they have exhausted all that they have in terms of, payment and all that, but they are not able to take care of a specific number of employees within their enterprise. And that is the number that then we are dealing with. And that is why we've given this economic stimulus package to ensure that that group is also taken care of.
And now
the process now is that we have an email that employees and employers can reach us, that team, so that the team can be able to analyze that information and take necessary action. And we have also a hotline in this ministry that then you can be able to reach us so that we know what is happening within within the enterprises. And number two, you should also realize that we have labor officers countrywide who are working even as we speak. We also have the National Employment Authority, which is a department, which is an authority within this ministry that is looking at the employment status of youth within the counties. And we also have the Department of Occupational Safety and Health that is also looking at the enterprises themselves. So we have a multi, agency team that is looking at employment, they are looking at redundancies, and they are giving us information so that we can take action immediately as a ministry.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to the actions that you're taking as a ministry, how are you also protecting now specifically, because we've talked about the employees, let's talk about now specifically the employers, narrowing down to those people who are providing jobs for the youth. The government set out billions in regards to this. How are we protecting the employers during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Come again, I think you are not very audible, please.
How are we protecting the employers during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much, thank you very much. By the way, employers have been protected as follows. One is that employers have signed CBA agreements with the employees. And the CBA agreements dictate the employment aspects of and the working conditions between the employer and the employee. Now, we've come in, of course, in consultation with the social partners, and the social partners I'm talking about, Code 2, FKE, and everybody else that is in that space of employment. And we have agreed and said we have to protect one another. One, we have to protect the employee, and two, we have to protect the employer. So what we did is that we came up with a raft of what we call guidelines, so that we are now saying we can produce a guideline on the Employment Relations Act. Nobody can be able to take an employer to court after he has decided to undertake a redundancy that is genuine and has been sanctioned by the ministry. So, and then number two is that we are also cushioning them by giving them the tax rebates. And for example, if an employer had 10 employees, and we are...
All right, that is a PS speaking to us, poor network there. Remember, these are normal issues that normally happen in regards to this. Employment Relations Act is one thing that the PS had mentioned there. We'll be touching that about that and what it entails. How are our employers also being protected during this COVID-19 pandemic? Bona PS, all right. All right, he's not yet back, but remember, keep tweeting and keep texting our social media platforms around. I'll be sampling them up even as continuing with this conversation on the effects of the COVID-19 on employment and how it is affecting both the formal and the informal sector. Just to note, remember, it was around 3 weeks ago that the Ministry of Labour had presented a report to the Parliamentary Committee stating that over 133,654 jobs are lost. And amongst those who lost their jobs so far, they are in the formal sector. And the numbers excludes employee on unpaid leave and those who have taken pay cuts. The most affected sectors include transport, aviation, hospitality, tourism, manufacturing, wholesale and trade, agriculture, and the informal sector. These are just part of what the government is trying to do in regards to this. So, Doreen, the PS has alluded to so many things, including the stimulus package that was there, that was highlighted by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and talking about the government also spending billions of shillings to the youth in dealing with the unemployment crisis amongst our youths right here in the country during this COVID-19 pandemic.
The PS has raised very pertinent issues, especially as it pertains the youths and the young people. But I just want to touch a bit on what he has said, and this is in regards to employers. And I really love what he has mentioned, that also employers are well taken care of, because we tend to lean on the employees and how they are losing the money they're losing, the half payment that they have to part with. But sometimes we don't take time to focus on the employer. So also, how are employers losing? And I love what the PS has mentioned, that also the employers are well taken care of just as much as the employees are taken care of during this pandemic and the kind of losses that they both are going through.
All right, I'm aware that we now have the PS back. Bona PS, picking up from where you left, you're talking about the employers' protection.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. I believe that you can be able to hear me. You are speaking about the employers' protection. All right, so pick it up from where you left.
Thank you.
All right.
I wanted just to go back a little bit and talk about the total employment in this country. And I had said that we have 18.1 million employees in the country. And the formal employees is about 3 million. Those who are in the informal sector is 15 million. And I had said that what really happens is that as a Ministry of Labour, we need to ensure that then there is a good relationship between the employer and the employee. And we've cushioned the employers by giving them a tax rebate. And I was saying, supposing a group is employing 100, for example, 100 employees, and that is an enterprise. And what happens is that, they have been given a tax rebate, which, for example, they will have saved, 2 million. As a ministry, we would wish to understand how then that is plowed back to the employee so that they are not sacked, right? So that is the kind of social engagement that we are approaching the effects of COVID-19 from. And that is the formal sector. The informal sector is where I talked about employees who employ themselves, and they have employed 2 or 3 people. And this is where the economic stimulus has come in, that was given by His Excellency the President, to ensure that then those who are working within the informal sector are also cushioned. Number 2 is that they produce, we're giving jobs. And number 3 is that that there is circulation of money within the communities. So when you look at the economic package that stimulus package that we've been able to give as a government, it has already targeted the employers, and it is again targeted the employees.
And all right. Also, you mentioned something about protecting employers. You mentioned the Employment Relations Act. We'll be touching on that also. But let's talk about also still, in the same breath, why do we see an instance where employees go to court when it comes to solving disputes? Is there a possibility or an alternative conflict resolution mechanism where we can have them passing through the labor office?
Thank you, Ram. In fact, the encouragement that we give from the Ministry of Labor is that no employer or employee should go to court before they exhaust all the mechanisms that have been laid down in the Labor Relations Act. And if you can remember very well, towards the beginning of last year, we gazetted the National Labor Board. Yeah, so that is an institution that ensures that the minister and the cabinet secretary and the principal secretary are well appraised of the going-ons on issues of the labor relations, in terms of labor relations. And then we also gazetted renowned conciliators, some of them who've been labor commissioners. They have been in the labor space for quite some time, so that they can be able to arbitrate on some of the issues that might crop up. And if you are aware, last year, we did undertake arbitration of several sectors, including the aviation industry, and those ones never ended up in court. So what we are saying is that we have mechanisms of ensuring that we deal with the labor relations in this country without necessarily going to court. And that has worked very, very, very well. And in the ministry, we have established what we call an alternative dispute resolution team that is looking at that and ensuring that that mechanism is undertaken both by employers and the employees. So when you look at the Labor Relations Act and Labor Institutions Act, the laws and the are very clear. They are very, very, very clear, and we have instituted that as a ministry.
Now, Bwana Pierce, what are the parameters of conflict resolution that employers and employees need to understand as of now, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic? All right. We will be connecting with the PS in a bit. So, Doreen, over to you. Back to you. When it comes to employer-employee, when it comes to the way they normally solve their problems, he says the first place to run to should not be going to court.
Exactly. That just talks about the kind of responsibility that both employees and employers should have amongst themselves in regards to just what has been mentioned. It is supposed to be sorted between you two. Sometimes, it becomes a bit difficult when you see employees running to court because of the issues that they have in the organization or even in the company. But just drawing from what the PS has mentioned, that it is very important for employees to know how to sort their issues, how to sort their problems with their employers before running to a higher office or a higher place like the court. But even aside from talking about how issues should be sorted out in a company or an organization between employers and their employees, Ram also drawing from what the PS has mentioned, which is very important. He mentioned that in the informal sector there's about 15 million employees. In the formal sector there's about 1 million, and that just brings to my thinking of how important the informal sector is to this country. Very, very important for us to focus on how we can even cushion and protect the informal sector, seeing that it carries the highest chunk of employees.
Yeah, very interesting point there, Doreen, in regards to how the informal sector is also playing a big role in the economy. Remember, it is the informal sector that has gone down to the roots to the common man on the ground. I'm aware the PS is back online. We are having some poor network there. Bwana PS, what are the parameters of conflict resolution? You were touching on that.
Thank you, Wanaguko. What we had said earlier on before we went off air was that we have a conflict resolution mechanism that is domiciled in the Ministry of Labor. And basically what they do is that, particularly during this COVID aspect of, during this COVID pandemic, what we want to ensure is that there is dialogue in between the employer and the employee. And that dialogue is talking about the CBA's agreements that they had signed. That is the formal sector. And when you look at the CBAs, they describe specific parameters of the working relationship between the employer and the employee, which would include working places, the salary, you know, the job description and all that, what they are expected, their outcomes and everything else. But within the pandemic period, you will realize that there is a new norm. There is a disruption of that CBA agreement that was signed by both the employer and the employee. So how do we come in then? Because, you know, there will always be disagreements in trying to negotiate on how then to implement that, that CBA. So what we are doing is that within the parameters of the Employment Act, we are saying, let's come up, and we did come up with the with the guidelines that would then govern the relationship between the employer and the employee in terms of the salary, just in case you are not able to employ, how much would you pay this worker, you know, and 2, working from home, because that was not the new home, the new norm. And then number 3 is to ensure that you then understand the timings, the working hours. Are you going to work 8 hours as had been anticipated in the CBA, or you are now going to work for 4 hours? And how will you monitor your employee in terms of productivity aspect? So that is where then those are the parameters within which we work as a ministry to ensure that there is that harmony between the employer and the employee.
Now, when there is conflict, at a time like this, so many employers and employees have gotten into conflict with one another during this COVID-19 pandemic, leading to most people losing their jobs. Now, to the common mwananchi, what should be the first course of action when there is a conflict between the employer and the employee?
What we have encouraged employers and through their association, the employees through their unions, employers through their associations, is that in case there is a problem that crops up because of the COVID-19, the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, the State Department of Labor, is supposed to be notified. And the notification avenues have been circulated. I told you we have already circulated the guidelines. We have also circulated the hot numbers. We have also circulated our email address to the direct that goes to the rapid response team. So what we are encouraging is that nobody should be able to take any action before the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection is notified, because that is when we know how to come up with, you know, an environment that then both of them will be able to thrive. You know, employees at the moment are the ones who are suffering, because what happens is that an employee does not even know the kind of you know, profits that the enterprises do. They don't know what the enterprises go through, you know, particularly the junior employees in those enterprises. So that is where the Ministry of Labor comes in and says, hey, let's sit together and understand what is happening, so that even as we send the employee home, we are sending them with an assurance that when things normalize post-COVID, they are able to come back. When things normalize post-COVID, they will come back to their salary. When things normalize post-COVID, they get their employment back. So that is how then we institute what we call the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, to ensure that there is that harmony at the workplace and the enterprises.
You've mentioned harmony, and using that same word, harmony. What is the government doing to bring harmony in employment pursuant to Employment Relations Act? Bwana PS.
Like I told you earlier,
yes,
we have the alternative dispute resolution mechanism.
Yes.
In the hierarchy of solutions to that kind of problem is that we have the ADR mechanism that is in the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. We also have the courts that are also, you know, able to hear issues that might not be, you know, arbitrated by the Ministry of Labor. So what happens is that the government is aware of disputes that could come up, at this particular moment when we have this COVID-19 pandemic. But then we have put in place mechanisms to ensure that any aggrieved person should be able to get in touch with us, should be able to have a discussion with us. We have very qualified labor officers in my ministry that could quickly walk into those enterprises and have issues resolved, and employees and employers, sat together and have a discussion. We also, like I said, we have our employment authority, whose officers that are in the counties can be able also to channel those grievances to us directly, and they can be sorted at that level, at the shop level, and those ones that are not able to be sorted out can be channeled to us. So as a ministry, what we are saying is that we took cognizance of that aspect and we are prepared for it. The Labor Relations Act is very, very clear on it, and it recognizes the alternative dispute resolution mechanism, and it is worked. It is worked because we've resolved very many issues that have even come up before the COVID pandemic.
Now,
and that is when the test of times has now brought us to board, and we are asking ourselves, how do we continue ensuring that there is that harmony even as we deal with the COVID pandemic?
All right, now, what is the exit strategy that you have as a ministry post-COVID-19?
Sorry? Come again?
What is the exit strategy that you have as a ministry post-COVID-19?
By the way, like we said, is that the guidelines that we put in place is during just this period of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Post-COVID, what we are seeing as a ministry is ensuring, number one, that the enterprises that are still on their feet should be able to bring back their employees, those ones that are on leave, those ones that are on half salary, because of the economic stimulus that the president has been able to give them. And even what we are doing at the moment is like we are anticipating that these are the things that will be in place post-COVID. So as a ministry, we'll ensure that that ADR mechanism is still working, because then, there will be a lot of conflicts post-COVID as a result of those that have been sent home.
Yes.
How shall we ensure as a ministry that the enterprises bring back their employees as they were? How do we ensure that we can bring back the CBA agreement that had been signed earlier and was temporarily suspended during this period of the COVID pandemic? How do we ensure that the salaries that are being paid are brought back to normalcy, or just about that normalcy? So we are strengthening, as a ministry, we are very quickly strengthening the alternative dispute resolution mechanism. We are also strengthening the labor department as a department itself. We are looking at those who are dealing with enterprises in the counties, so that at least they are giving us that information, and we work on it, so that by the time now we are going post-COVID, at least mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that normalcy returns very, very quickly. The aspect of hygiene also within the enterprises and within the workplaces is something that we are looking at. We've trained several inspectors in our ministry. We've gotten funds, and the training has gone on, particularly in private and the public sector. And what is going to happen is that post-COVID, we'll ensure that the hygiene standards that we've developed at this particular moment are upheld. And remember that what would happen at that particular moment is that we'll be having less injuries, because, and therefore the enterprises will not be paying like they used to do before, because we put in place mechanisms to ensure that the workplaces are safe. And then two is that we are working as a government to see how the recruitment agencies will be able to guarantee that those that are taken out of this country are cushioned when they come back, either through a remittance or establishment of a fund. And that is works in progress. As a ministry, We are looking at that particular one. That will be targeting the migrant workers. And then for the systems that are in the ministry, we'll want to ensure that there is constant dialogue between the employer and the employee through their unions and associations. Remember, we've had enterprises like the flower farms, the retail and trade, accommodation and food services that have really been affected by this pandemic. Those are the areas that the government will be looking into to ensure that they come back to their feet, because we know tourism is a key factor in terms of what the remittances to this country, the economic, a key factor in the economy of this country. And those are the areas that we'll be looking at as a ministry to ensure that they come back on their feet and there is industrial harmony in between the employers and the employees themselves.
You mentioned quite a lot, and for the common man on the ground, they may wonder, what should they do post-COVID, especially for those who have lost the job? Is there plans for job restoration for the youth?
Aguko, what is happening at the moment during this pandemic is that the government is working day and night, to ensure that we prepare for the post-COVID. And that preparation is not only within the Ministry of Labor, it is the whole government, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
We have enterprises that will have, lost, will have lost in terms of this pandemic.
Yeah.
There are enterprises that will have come up. There are those ones. So what the government is doing is that it is monitoring to ensure that post-COVID, we come back, we take a very short period coming back to normalcy. So those employees that will have lost jobs during this particular moment, and like I told you, we are taking data of the same, and we are trying to see whether we can also intervene through other funding mechanisms, particularly those ones that are in the informal sector. We are taking stock of the impact so that post-COVID, we know who and where is the person that we need to come up to ensure that they are cushioned, right?
Now,
if they are not able to come back into employment, what as a government shall we be able to do? How shall we cushion them? And you can see the economic stimulus that the president announced over the weekend is speaking to that aspect of what we are saying. Kazi Mtaani, for example, that is a program that is ensuring that there is a livelihood in the community. Yeah.
Now,
the enterprises, the SMEs that are being cushioned by giving, ensuring that they have liquidity. Those are the things that the government is doing. So there is a multi-agency approach towards ensuring that post-COVID, we come back to normalcy as quickly as possible.
Now, one appears, because of the interest of time, maybe you can give us your recommendation, especially to the nation, to the employed, both those who have lost and those who have not lost, the employed and the unemployed. Recommendations to the nation.
What I want to say is that I want to assure the public that the government is on top of things. And that is why you can see it's injecting a lot of money in billions into the community. Two, there is the social protection aspect of it. And social protection was earlier on targeting the vulnerable. And we have the new vulnerables now that have been taken out of employment. And like I said, most of those who are affected were the ones who are the informal sector. And what my ministry has done in the recent past is to ensure that we have a record of all those that have been affected in one way or another, and they have been made vulnerable. So that once we have that figure and we know the numbers, and I think by the end of this,
all right, network issues there with the principal secretary. I don't know if you can have him back.
That are ensuring that those who are affected by this pandemic, particularly the employees themselves, are taken care of through various programs that the government has come up with.
All right. Thank you very much, Bwana PS, for your time. All right, that is the discussion on the impact of COVID-19 on employment, which brings us to the end of this morning show right here on Good Morning Kenya. It has been a pleasure having you from the beginning now to the tail end of this discussion. See you again tomorrow morning for Good Morning Kenya. My name is Ramagugo. God bless you. God bless the work of your hands.
And my name is Dorina Range. Till tomorrow, good morning.
And lastly, the Department of